The history of medieval architecture is often reduced to castles, cathedrals, and towering keeps. Yet the structures ordinary people relied upon, the homes that sheltered entire communities, reveal a far subtler story. What most histories overlook is that the design of roofs in Northern Europe was a matter of survival as much as style. Heavy snowfall, driving winds, and months-long winters were not minor inconveniences. They dictated whether a household would endure the season or collapse under its weight. Before we dive into the details of these designs, consider subscribing to the channel, because we'll uncover not just the what, but the how and why behind these time-tested practices. Medieval builders were not engineers in the modern sense, but their work was governed by an intimate knowledge of materials, climate, and human endurance. Communities relied on local timber, stone, and thatch, but these materials had limits. Snow accumulates weight quickly. A foot of wet snow can add hundreds of pounds per square meter to a roof. Wind exerts horizontal forces that can pry beams apart if the structure is not properly braced. These were realities the builders faced constantly, and they responded with solutions that were sophisticated, practical, and in many cases enduring. The pitch of a roof mattered more than its decoration. Steeply pitched roofs were a defining characteristic of Northern European vernacular architecture, and the reason was simple: gravity. A roof with a shallow angle would trap snow and rain, allowing moisture to penetrate the thatch or timbers, accelerating rot. Angles of 45 degrees or steeper were common in regions of heavy snowfall, and in some alpine communities pitches could reach 60 degrees. These angles were not arbitrary, they were the product of trial, error, and centuries of observation, but pitch alone was insufficient. Builders understood that the weight of snow could compromise even the steepest roof if the internal framework was weak. That led to the development of truss systems long before they were formally described in architectural texts. Triangular timber frames distributed weight more efficiently than simple beams across walls, creating a self-supporting structure. The principle is deceptively simple. A triangle does not deform under pressure, unlike a rectangle. By connecting beams at specific angles and securing them with wooden pegs or iron nails, medieval carpenters could ensure the roof would survive not just one winter, but decades. Snow retention and wind resistance were equally critical. In some regions, the goal was not simply to shed snow, but to control where it accumulated. Builders designed overhangs, extended eaves, and even latticed thatch to allow layers of snow to settle in a predictable manner. This reduced the risk of sudden collapses when heavy wet snow accumulated unevenly. Roofs facing prevailing winds were often reinforced with extra beams or cross braces. A single poorly anchored truss could fail in a storm, but with careful orientation and reinforcement, medieval homes survived seasons that would destroy less thoughtful construction. The selection and preparation of timber were as much a part of survival strategy as design. Medieval builders preferred heartwood from old, slow-growing trees, which was denser, less prone to warping, and more resistant to rot. In regions with harsh winters, some communities intentionally stored beams for years in ventilated shelters before construction, allowing moisture content to stabilize. This practice was a form of passive climate engineering, a recognition that rushing construction could compromise both safety and longevity. Thatch was not simply a roof covering, it was an active defense against the elements. Well-prepared thatch is surprisingly insulating, keeping interiors warmer in winter and cooler in summer. Layers were compressed to shed water efficiently and to resist wind penetration. Roofs were often treated with lime washes or clay coatings, not for aesthetic reasons, but to add weight, compress the material, and reduce flammability. Builders understood that even small imperfections in a roof could magnify into catastrophic failures when snow and ice accumulated. Each layer of thatch, each peg and brace, was placed with an understanding of forces few modern observers fully appreciate. Medieval roofs also reflect a deep understanding of seasonal cycles. Builders timed construction to avoid winter, not merely for convenience, but because working with timber in frozen conditions risked splitting and misalignment. Seasonal labor practices, harvesting, drying, and assembling wood, were carefully integrated with local climate knowledge. A roof built too early in autumn or too late in spring could fail under its first load of snow. In this way, architecture was inseparable from survival strategy. These principles carried lessons that extended beyond the home. Military and civic buildings relied on similar logic. Fortress walls and gatehouses often incorporated steeply pitched roofs to shed snow and prevent structural damage that could weaken defenses. In Scandinavian and Alpine regions, monasteries and granaries used roof design as a functional strategy to protect vital food stores. Even temporary shelters and field constructions followed the same patterns, reflecting a culture-wide understanding that human endurance depended on controlling exposure to the elements. The legacy of these designs is subtle but enduring. Modern architecture often obscures these lessons behind insulation, steel, and engineered roofing materials. Yet when modern buildings fail in snowstorms or heavy wind events, the cause often echoes the challenges medieval builders faced: misjudged weight distribution, inadequate bracing, or failure to anticipate environmental stress. Survival, then as now, depends on a thorough understanding of material properties and environmental forces, coupled with careful planning and observation. Understanding medieval roof design teaches more than construction techniques. It offers insight into a mindset that balanced resources, risk, and long-term planning. Communities that mastered these principles thrived. Those that ignored them suffered costly collapses. For the historian and survivalist alike, the lesson is the same. Resilience is engineered, not accidental. It is built through observation, adaptation, and disciplined attention to detail. Roofs were not just shelters. They were statements of human ingenuity confronting climate and circumstance. By studying these structures today, we gain more than aesthetic appreciation. We uncover strategies for enduring hardship, for working with materials and conditions rather than against them. These lessons resonate beyond history and architecture, reminding us that preparedness, foresight, and respect for natural forces are timeless imperatives. In conclusion, the design of medieval roofs was far more than a matter of appearance. It was a careful negotiation with gravity, wind, and snow, a combination of physics, materials, science, and accumulated experience. By understanding these choices, we can better appreciate the sophistication of everyday life in the Middle Ages and the ways ordinary people engineered resilience long before modern technology existed. Remembering these practical, survival-minded innovations reminds us that history is not only about battles or rulers, but about human ingenuity in the face of relentless environmental pressures. If you value careful historical analysis and want more insights into how people in the past confronted the challenges of survival, subscribe to the channel and share this video. Each story we explore illuminates a world shaped by both human skill and environmental forces, lessons that remain relevant for those who seek to understand endurance, strategy, and the ingenuity embedded in everyday life.